Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Blade Season 1, Episode 1, The House of Chthon, and also the series Rundown Review. So, if you remember 2006, there was a TV show that came out on Spike TV called Blade, the TV series. And yes, it is in fact based off of Blade, the live action movies, the trilogy. And yes, they are all connected. And yes, it was not that great. I briefly talked about this when I reviewed Swamp Thing. Go watch that. And so I basically said both of these shows have something similar to them. It's the reason why I think they got canceled. I'll get into that a little bit later. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to talk about the good things, the bad things in this series, and why I thought it got canceled. And then I'm going to review the first episode, which is basically a movie in its own that was about like 80 something minutes and stuff. And so probably a bit more than that. So it was like the first episode, which was like a two-parter. It only ran for like 11 episodes, but 12 if you count that two-parter and stuff. And ratings were mixed and everything. There was a lot to this series. For the most part, when it comes to Blade, he's only been featured in Spider-Man the animated series, Ultimate Spider-Man, the 3 Blade movies, this TV series, and Blade the anime. And so I remember loving the first 2 Blade movies. They were the first, Blade was the first successful Marvel movie. A lot of people think it's X-Men and Spider-Man, but no, it was Blade. But people don't want to give that movie credit. And so then the third one, they came out with Blade Trinity. And Blade Trinity sucked. It was terrible. Everything was bad. The dialogue was bad. The villains were abysmal. Wesley Snipes was being like his grumpy butt-headed self, acting like a diva and everything, and wanting to hurt David S. Goyer and stuff. And so Natasha Lyonne was actually one of my favorite people in that movie. She did a really good job playing the blind lady, but it was just a terrible movie. And so David S. Goyer decided to make a TV series, and it came on Spike TV. And Spike TV was the network known for men, and also the network known for Star Trek reruns and stuff. And so I recorded the pilot episode. And when I did, I realized something. I was all like, hey, who the heck is this man? This ain't Blade. This ain't Wesley Snipes. See, Wesley Snipes was being a bad boy, not paying his taxes and stuff. And so he had to go to court like a year later after that, and then went to jail. Oh, he went to jail just like Martha Stewart for not paying taxes. However, people who also did not pay their taxes and did not go to jail were the following: Nicolas Cage, Pamela Anderson, the entire Osborne family, and I think that's all I know of. There's probably more, but that's the only people I know of. And so, like, yeah, so he was never going to be a part of this series. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, whatever. It could be like Highlander, I guess. I can deal with like a new actor. They have so many different Batman. And then so as I'm watching it, I realized something. First things first, the actor could not act. And there's a reason for that. See, Sticky Fingers, as he's known, or Sticky Fingers with a Z, he was a rapper at that time. And then he decided to go on the TV. I don't think he raps or does TV no more, I don't think. I don't know how his acting is now, but back then he could not act. I have no idea how he raps because I never listened. I have no idea if he knew martial arts back then, but it showed that he did not. In fact, one of the bad things about this series is that the action was terrible. it was just lackluster and clumsy looking. Like this one scene where Blade has the sword, he's charging, jumps high in the air and tries to stab a man only to hit the floor. And the man didn't even move. How do you miss that? But the action choreography was just terrible on its own. Power Rangers has better fight scenes than this show. That's embarrassing. Now, this show actually showed nudity in the first episode. I was surprised, and they cuss using the S word and stuff. I was surprised about that too. But they don't cuss that much in this, and there ain't that much nudity just from that one scene that I remember. Now, after I saw the pilot episode, which actually I liked the pilot episode, but I tried to watch like the second episode, I'm like, you know, I just can't do this no more. I just can't do it. So I didn't watch it back in 2006. In fact, I think it was 2018, I found it on the CW Seed, and I decided to watch it then, and I realized this series just sucks. It came out on DVD, then they put it in a four box set with all the Blade movies, and thank God I just had the first two, because I would not want this series. Now, I will say, I give them props for like trying to stay faithful to certain things that happen in Blade, such as like, you know, the night sky going from day to night really fast, the car zooming by really fast. They had like outside of Moscow, like they have shot some footage from, I guess, like the movie or something like that. And they had a building that looked very reminiscent of something you would see in the Blade movie. And they tried to create that same atmosphere, dirty streets, dirty buildings. So they did it on that of a TV budget, and I give them credit for that. Also, the motorcycle scene between Blade and this vampire was actually pretty cool and everything. How he was going in the halls. They gave him a new motorcycle. In fact, they gave him a new almost everything. Of course, we already know he has a new face. But his costume looks a little bit on the cheap side. His leather jacket is no longer thick and is thin and rubbery looking. His weapons, for the most part, look the same as that of the movie's, just been tweaked a little bit. His throwing blade things now have like a glowing blue light in the middle of the circle, because the ultraviolet blue light like shines and stuff like that. He retains the same guns as he had in the second Blade, in the second and third movie. I like those. Those were cool. But the guns in the first one was more like Terminator looking. I like those more. He retains the same sword. His stakes are smaller and have like this little gold thing on the end of it. And he has this weird thing when he injects people with this giant thing. His bulletproof vest, in the back, it looks like foam. And in the front, it just looks like cotton material or something, like padded stuff. It doesn't look like that leather stuff we saw like in the movie with the cool designs and stuff. His tattoos have changed and like they look fake. He no longer has hair or like sideburns or a goatee beard that connects to it. He talks with a raspy, snarling type voice. His costume just looks, he has all of his weapons like front and center, which is kind of okay and kind of not. It's just a little too cartoonish at times. And so they mimicked this style for like the Ultimate series and stuff. Now, they changed his motorcycle. They changed it in the first movie was the coolest one of them all. The second movie, they went for more like a ninja type style, more flashy, and same thing with the third. And then in this one, they have a Harley Davidson. His car is the same, but it just doesn't look as shiny as it did a long time ago. He doesn't appear to have no more of his ETA stuff or like the cure stuff that makes things explode, vampires explode. He still uses the same syringes that he uses to inject himself with his serum, but in the third movie we saw he got something completely different that he inhales in the mouth, but yet this is supposed to be connected. See, what happened was The virus, the day something virus that's supposed to kill vampires, apparently it did not spread that far. And so there are still vampires and stuff. And so that's why this series got created. Also, Mark Spector gets name dropped in the pilot. At that time, I did not know who he was. Now, he's given a new sidekick type person that's supposed to help him like build his weapons and stuff like that. That makes sense. He's always had that because Whistler is dead. Is Nielsen Lee, who played the Dragon King in Stargirl. I think his name is Sheen or something like that. Not much is known about him. He doesn't even do that much action. He's really good with computers. He can hack. He builds the weapons and the serum, and we know his family was killed by vampires. That's about it. Let's try to think. There's a new house named chthon of vampires, and it's led by Marcus. Marcus is a very evil vampire, played by Icicle from Stargirl. And so, basically, with him, I'll get into him a little bit more. But there's a flashback where they try to sympathize him, showing his wife got like assaulted and he got turned into like a vampire and stuff like that. Chase is his right hand lady who's really evil. Reminds me of that blonde lady from the first movie. And there's another character introduced, and she's played by Jillian. What's her name? Jillian Wagger. I can't think of her name right now, but I will get to it in a couple of minutes. And now it's time to get in. Oh, also they focus more on his father and that little chess piece he has. Now, this is supposed to connect to that of the Blade movies, right? And in the pilot, they even mention, and they even show a flashback of his mom giving birth and, that scene from the movie. And then one thing they try to do is explain the father a little bit more in that chess piece. Well, they break continuity, even in their own series after they just mentioned everything. They said, plain and simple, Whistler only met Blade when, because this is some guy explains it in the show. He explains that Whistler met Blade when he was a teenager, feeding off the homeless and stuff, right? We knew that from the first movie and the second movie. They retconned this even in their own show. It turns out that his dad tried to his dad, after he turned and everything, not the dad, but Blade, when he was born a vampire, his dad fed him blood and stuff like that, right? But he needed help, so he called Whistler, a younger Whistler with brown hair. Now, this Whistler went to his house, saw Blade. Blade grabbed the chess piece. He snapped Whistler's leg and ran out. This breaks continuity so badly because Whistler didn't meet him until Whistler was an old man and Blade was a teenager. Also, Whistler's leg was never mentioned being snapped by Blade. So I don't know why they would change that. Also, he has a childhood friend who hates his guts and turns into a vampire and tries to kill him and all this other crap. Now, to be fair, Sticky Fingers does have a very cool look to him. Like, he looks aggressive and everything, and the bald head is a nice touch. And, with the shades and everything. But it's the moment he starts talking or doing something, that's when he loses all, coolness and everything. Because his inexperience in acting and his weird sounding Blade's voice, it just doesn't really help, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes he looks cool when he's looking mean, but sometimes he looks like he's trying to be mean, here's the thing. Look at Wesley Snipes. This man just looks intimidating as Blade. The moment he walks into a room dressed like that, you know one thing's gonna happen. You're gonna get your butt kicked. There's this presence to him, this boldness to him, and he's not even trying to do that. But when you see Sticky Fingers Blade walk into a room, then you know chances are you're gonna kick his butt and everything. It just doesn't have that same feel to it. And sometimes in the fights, this Blade gets his butt kicked a lot in the show, and it's embarrassing and stuff. At one point in time, his dad had to help him out. Speaking of which, like, I do like how they went more into his backstory. When they finally started to explore the character of Blade and stop having to be all about like Krista turning into a vampire and then falling in love with the dude who killed her brother and stuff like that. Like, yeah, she develops romantic feelings for him and everything. Like, what the world are they thinking? It was nice they finally got into some Blade stuff, and it was nice to see things that happened with him after, like, he lived with his father let him drink blood, then he ran away after breaking Whistler's leg, then this cop let him stay with him, then he ended up hanging out with a gang lord named Stephen Razor, who's actually from the comics and everything. And it was kind of cool to explore that. Now, some other characters in the show is, like I said before, Stephen Razor. What a name. And he is from the comics. He's like some vampire drug lord. And then here he's a gangster. He took in Blade. When Blade left and went with Whistler as a teenager, he resented that and has always kept an eye on Blade to get revenge and stuff like that. He beats the snot rockets out of Blade. And then so his dad had to come in and stab Blade through the back. And then the blade went through Blade's chest and it stabbed Stephen Razor. That was actually a cool kill. I wasn't expecting that. Now, Blade's dad, he is played, well, I don't know who he's played in the flashbacks, but in the older version, he's played by none other than the actor who voiced Shaq. And so, like, in one episode, Blade is like, trying to find out what's going on with this whole Stephen Razor thing. Blade gets his butt whooped. The dad comes in with Blade's sword, stabs Blade through the back. It goes through the chest, and it stabs Stephen Razor, which I already mentioned. Still a cool scene. Just like almost every vampire show there's always that young vampire. That's how it always is in shows and movies. There's always that young person. Well, this one is Charlotte, and she is a vampire queen who has just traveled to America to keep an eye and see the progress that Marcus has made. I don't remember much about her, but she's in about 6 episodes or so, and she comes into contact with Blade a couple of times. See, it's really hard for me to remember what goes on in this because I was just baffled at how bad it was. And so because of that, I didn't really jot things down to memory. And so I'm like, okay, well, fine, I'll just go online and figure it out. But there's not much information on it. In fact, she's not even on the Wikipedia page. You have to go on the Wiki fandom page and stuff. And even when you go there, it's barely any information. Not sure how I say this guy name. I think it's Sheen. He is Blade's accomplice. He's the one who builds all like the tools. He makes his serum. He does all the gadget stuff. He's basically like the new Whistler and everything. He's the dude who plays him. I think it's Nelson Lee. He was Dragon King and Stargirl. The only thing I know about him is that he's always eager to join Blade in the field, but Blade doesn't always want him in the field. He's good with computer hacks and stuff. And we just know that his family died from vampires, which seems to be the typical thing for whoever joins up with Blade. There is Chase. She is like the main vampire, like right-hand lady. She's very vengeful. She's very sadistic. She's very evil. She's very jealous. She doesn't like when Krista comes into the fold. And she's just all around like evil and stuff. Then we have the head vampire evil dude, Marcus himself. He was first human, turned into a vampire. His wife was, they try to like make him sympathetic. So his wife back in the olden days was like assaulted and everything. He was turned into like a vampire. We see him hung up at one point by a bunch of Native American vampires. And he's just like the head honcho of the vampires. He hates purebloods and he's making something that experimented on vampires, which I'll get into a little bit later. Another thing about this show I didn't like about the vampires is that they kept roaring like a lion or an animal, and I'm just like they copy that from Buffy. Buffy does that. Her vampires make that like dinosaur lion sound, and I'm just like, Blade vampires don't really do that, and so it was just kind of odd and off-putting. Speaking of growling, like there's even a scene where Blade stands on a roof for like maybe 10 seconds and just growls and everything. And I'm just kind of like, why is he growling? Why do all the vampires here growl for? Like, this is not the Buffy verse, you know? So, the action was not very good. It was very lackluster. The dialogue at times were bad. Like one time, Blade is trying to help this pregnant woman, and he literally says, "Don't hurt the pregnant lady," in his raspy voice that he has. It's almost like, "Don't hurt the pregnant lady," like that, and stuff. I'm just like, that's really what he's gonna say. Then one scene, one time, he said something from the movie talking about Krista, the lady played by Jill. She asked him like, "What are you?" And he's all like, something else or something like that from like the movie. And I'm just like, come on with your own dialogue, man. So the dialogue, the action, the story was kind of flat a bit. It was interesting, but it was flat. Um, there was some locations that I said looked cool, but at other times it just looked like flat TV. Blood. Now they did show a bloody scene, a really good bloody scene, but that was really the only one in the pilot episode. Throughout the whole show, you don't see that much blood. But when you do, it does look pretty good. And as you all know, the Blade movies is a bloodbath. Now the CGI when the vampires get like turned to fire and ash and dusted and stuff, that looked really cool, except for when they was laying on the bed. It looked really terrible and stuff. It basically looked like somebody melted. The villains were kinda generic a little bit. They was okay, a little preppy. Um, they were just a little too preppy. They needed more flair to them. The vampires, even though they're supposed to be connected to the Blade movies, they act differently and stuff. For instance, they're able to crawl on walls and ceilings now. They flip a lot when they fight. Also, now when you drink somebody's blood, they do the whole underworld thing where you can see somebody's memories and stuff. And they even call it genetic memories and stuff. And I'm just kind of like, why steal from them? The one great thing about vampire movies and TV show is that they're all different from one another. Buffy has the whole you can't come in and crosses and holy water and wooden stakes. Blade had the whole silver thing and garlic. Underworld had like the UV lights and genetic like blood memories and stuff. And Van Helsing, she had like, basically just like the Walking Dead ripoff. And it's just like everybody was different from one another. And this is going to try to copy from something else. And I don't understand why they did that. And so, like, now we get into the part that I feel like some people just kind of like, well, what the world was this for? And I feel bad saying this. So, now we get into Swamp Thing. Now, I said in Swamp Thing, there was one element that I felt like probably pissed fans off and why the show got canceled. And I said it's because of the show didn't even focus on its title character. It never really focused on Swamp Thing. It focused on his love interest. She was the main star. Everything seemed to have like, she was in almost in every scene, a lot of dialogue. You barely saw Swamp Thing. It was mostly just about her and everything, her backstory. And that's what happens here. See, there's an actress named, or there's a character named Krista, right? She shows up in the beginning of the pilot. She's looking for her twin brother. she's trying to find out who kills him and everything. She comes across with the vampires and Blade and all this and that, right? Well, the entire show focuses on her. In this pilot episode, she has more scenes than that of Blade. She has more dialogue. She's the one who gets the story moving. Blade just pops in and out to kill vampires, pops out again, pops in to kill more vampires, pops out, says a little bit, couple of lines here and there, and then he pops out again. And they made him so weak. He got his butt kicked so bad that like he was stumbling and fell off his motorcycle. And I'm just kind of like, dude, Wesley Snipes would have been able to take those licks and everything. But yeah, if the show is called Blade and it's supposed to continue where the movies left off, then why in the world is it focusing on this new character? It's okay if we can like know her backstory and her motivations and everything, but she should never been the main focus. It's cool she's the co-lead and everything, but don't make her the main focus. That's one thing the movies did great. They had Blade front and center, and the female main star helped contribute to the story and everything and helped it flow, but they was never the main focus because Blade always was and everything. And they was a plot device, but they didn't take up that much screen time. Whereas here she is a plot device and she takes up screen time. Now, Jill Wagner did an amazing job acting. She was my favorite person in the whole show. If they would have renamed it something different and took Blade out, I would have just loved to see her do her thing and everything. She's smart, she's tough, and all kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? But it's not her show. And I felt like when fans saw that, they were just kind of like, well, why is it focusing on this random person we've never met before? It's supposed to focus on Blade. But it never really truly did. Blade only gets like one real episode to himself. That's his origin story with the dad, and the dad shows up, and then that old friend of his and everything, and we get to know about the whole chess piece thing and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like we felt cheated, you know what I'm saying? Like, she was a cool character and I like her, she was my favorite, but we're supposed to want to watch the show for Blade. But it doesn't help when the actor can't really act that well. So let's get into this show. So Blade, he's in Moscow, he's hunting down some vampires. There's a really cool chase sequence with the motorcycle. I really like that. He's just like going through like the hallways and everything with the motorcycle. It's a Harley Davidson, I said. And so at some point he kills the vampire, and the special effects on that is good. And so then it cuts to that, and we get to like America. And we see Krista, she goes to the house, she's upset, because she's thinking about like her twin brother and wants to know what happened to him. So she goes and she investigates. And that pretty much takes up the entire runtime of the pilot episode. She's investigating. So at some point, she's looking for her brother. And she's just like, going to his place and talking to certain people that he might know, stuff like that. Earlier, we see a man, and so he's talking to a group of vampires, the main villains of the show. And they say he's been asking too many questions. See, he's a familiar and everything. They say he's been asking too many questions, so they shoot him point blank in the head. They didn't want to turn him because that would have caused more problems. This guy turns out to be Krista's twin brother. And so when she's at the morgue, she sees that. And so she's talking to like the police detective and everything, and he's being his like buttheaded self. And so like he has a tattoo on him. She asks what that is. The cops all like, oh, it's just like a gang thing. Well, she's all like, well, he was never in a gang. He's like, well, he was a drug dealer. She's like, he never sold drugs. And then so like, now the tattoo is one of griff type things, that shows a familiar. We see these symbols all throughout the first episode. It's like right on the nose. And it's kind of like, how do some people not realize that these things are connected? But there's a thing about it. He's picking up prostitutes and everything. And so he takes them to like a warehouse. And then all of a sudden, there's a bunch of vampires hanging from the ceiling and they eat like the prostitutes. And we don't know exactly why, but then we later see that these vampires are being experimented on. Sometimes they put in like these plastic bags or they're on a table. They get exposed to like sunlight and like garlic and everything, right? And this is when the CGI is bad and then they just melt and it looks terrible. Now we don't know why that cop is doing that, but at one point in time, Krista like goes to him and she talks about like how, um my brother this, my brother that, and so like, he didn't do this, didn't do that. So she pulls the fire alarm and she steals his file. She sees some people he had contact with, so she starts chasing that person down. It's another familiar. He doesn't want to talk to her. He gives her the slip and he calls the vampires. Well, Blade's investigating as well. He goes to like a tattoo place and he beats up Chuck Liddell of all people, who's a familiar and stuff. And so this is when we see like the new lady and stuff. And so like he's doing his terrible fighting skills. My God, this dude's terrible. So anyways, Krista, she goes to like her brother's apartment. She's looking around, and Blade's there, but he doesn't like. He's not really. She didn't really see him. He's moving too fast. She chases him outside. Then all of a sudden, he's on the roof, and she doesn't understand how he got there so fast. So then, when she was chasing down this dude who knew her brother, he dropped some drugs and everything, right? And so it looks like crack cocaine. So what does she do? She sees more of the symbols around that on the cliffs and everything. So she scans it into like the computer. She Googles it, and then she finds a dude who had that symbol and talking about myth or like or something else or cover up. So she talks to him. He's like some doctor, a professor. He's a professor. And he is very paranoid. He has big things of garlic outside his door. He wants to see people's necks and arms, see if they have any tattoo grips on them. And then she shows him the vial. And he tells her it's called ash, vampire ash. It's their drug and everything. And then somehow he knows Blade. And that's he tells her everything about Blade, about the father, Whistler, and all this other crap. I'm just like, how does this dude know? Apparently he knew Whistler and everything. Now Whistler did say he had friends and everything, so it's possible. So he's helping her figure things out. She doesn't believe in vampires and stuff, but he tells her it's real because he lost his fingers to them and everything. So at some point in time, she's still snooping around, investigating, and she gets attacked by some vampires. And comes Blade, and then he kills them. Nice CGI too, but this is when his fighting still sucks. So she realizes something. She's all like, "What are you?" And he's all like, "Something else." And he tells her, "Get out of town, forget what you saw, blah blah," stuff like that. Well, of course she doesn't do that, and she sticks around. And so like, eventually it brings him, like she's snooping around, she go back to that professor. And when she goes to the professor, he's all like, "This is Blade's last known address." She goes there because he moves around. He had to find like a new place after the last time. Somehow she's able to find him because he's still snooping around her. He takes her back to his friend and he tells her more about like the vampires and stuff like that. And then he gives her a tracking unit and he wants to use her to go to this banquet that the vampires are having. Now, Blade is known for using somebody as bait, but he only does it to people who's already been bit and transforming into vampires. He's never actually done it to a human. Now, this Blade, his sunglasses has like a scanner to it, and it can tell if somebody's a human or a vampire. I think that's crappy because one thing that was cool about Blade in the first movie, he said you can tell a vampire by the way they smell, the way they move, the way they walk, the way they interact with people. That's some skill level, boss level stuff right there. So just having a scanner just like takes that away, you know? So she goes there, she interacts with the vampires, they talk and everything. He reveals he killed her brother and all this other stuff. So she's pissed. She goes outside, takes the camera off, and then she gets her sniper rifle. Why? Because she used to be in the military. So she goes on the roof and she talks to like the bad guy and she's looking to snipe his behind. He's hiding behind people as he's walking, taunting her and stuff, right? And so like he can see her from a far away distance, but she can't get the shot. He's too busy walking behind people. Well, he sends Chase, his right hand female, to capture her. So Blade is pissed because he put that woman's life in danger and stuff. She wakes up and she's surrounded by vampires. And Marcus, he's talking to her and blah, 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 blah. And so he decides to take some of his own blood in a big syringe and needle and stick it into her and inject her. She turns into a vampire. Chase doesn't like this. She's jealous and is all like, you're supposed to ask for permission and blah, 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 blah. She gets flashbacks of a bunch of Native Americans and like them. They're vampires and they turn Marcus back in the old days. So this is with the whole genetic like thing, you know what I'm saying? So he instructs Chase to like show her the ropes and everything like that. Chase doesn't want to do it, but she does it in a way. She shows Krista what the grips are. But this is what's strange. She tells her to look and focus, and then we see a wall and nothing's on there, but all of a sudden the griff shows up. She said only people with ultraviolet like ultraviolet eyes or something like that can see it. Now this is interesting because in the second Blade movie, that one vampire lady, Nessa, she gives Blade some like goggles with different like lenses to it where he can see it because it's in some type of like paint they use, right? That makes it invisible. Now there is something like that. I remember it's this stuff you use is a certain type of paint and you write with it. This is how people used to give messages to like during like World War II, and also like some other people have done it, you know. And you can use kind of like some type of lemon juice or like a black light to make the words visible. So I thought that was kind of neat that they tied that into it, you know. But all them other symbols are all around town. People can see that crap. Or maybe they can't. Who knows, you know. So in a way, she's liking being a vampire and everything. And Blade, he's upset. And he's all kind of like, what if I give her the serum and everything? And, you know, and so his friends all like, you know, that won't work on her. She's not like you. But he's going to do it anyway. But what about Karen's cure? Like, that saved Karen and some other people. But apparently that doesn't exist in this, but it's supposed to be connected. So he goes to that safe house. He's whooping some butt in a very lazy, choreographed kind of way. He sees what they're doing and experimenting on other vampires and stuff. And he sees the other vampires like held captive. He sees Krista, she's feeding and everything, feeding on the detective guy. And he's all like, you know, she's not supposed to feed because then she might not turn. But he injects her anyway because he wants to make her head clear because right now the demon's taking over. And so he ends up getting his butt whooped so bad. Now the shootout is pretty good. I give him credit for that. But everything else in the fight scene just sucked. So he gets his butt kicked so bad, he hops back on his motorcycle and he leaves her. And he heads back to his hideout and he collapses. Next morning, they go back and they clear that entire place out. So Marcus is liking on Krista and all this other stuff. And she does something that no vampire has ever done before. She leaps over like 100 feet to like another building or more. And I'm like, vampires can't do that in the Blade series. Or did Blade actually do that? Am I thinking that of the Matrix? Blade did jump really far, but he didn't jump that far. And so she finds Blade and she's pissed. And she's like, what did you do to me? He's all like, I made your mind clear and everything. And he tells her, because he gave her that serum. And so he tells her the truth, that her brother was his contact. And he was gathering information on the vampires and stuff, and that what got him killed. So he feels terrible about that. He wants to work with her and have her be his new inside mole. He gives her tons of his serum and she takes it and she just like walks off. So for the rest of the series, this is what happens basically. She works undercover. They have like a budding relationship. I think at one point she even gets cured or not. I don't know if she does, but she's kind of like him a little bit, but whatever. Like I said, the show's all about her, but this is why the people are experimenting on like the vampires. They lied. They was trying to, and they said they were trying to enhance vampires, make them stronger and resistant to their weaknesses. Because one of the vampires who fought Blade, he took a serum, and he was basically jacked up on like steroids and stuff. Nothing will kill him. Not garlic, not sunlight, not nothing. Not even silver. But it turns out that was a ruse. See, Marcus wanted to kill all the purebloods and everything. And so that's why he started experimenting on them, testing a serum that will only target purebloods and stuff. And so then, he was like, him and Chase getting some kind of argument and everything, and then some other crap happens, and he unleashes the virus, and it ends on a cliffhanger. So all in all, this series was just like all right, but not really. It didn't focus on the character it needed to. The villains were kind of flat a little bit. The action wasn't great. Some other stuff was not great. There was like lack of blood every now and then. It used to be on the CWC. They took it off. When the CWC takes something off, they let you know it's bad. The only place you can find it now is on Apple TV for $1.99 per episode. And it is not worth buying. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.